not new to Middletown, so I have been doing Project Plus for probably 5 to 6 years now. So if you have a fifth grader or anyone who's gone through the system of like fifth through middle school and have been in Project Plus, I do a majority of their programs. Tonight I will be right down there, down the road tonight from 6 to 7 doing it also tonight. I will be in the high schools. That is something new. I have not been invited to your high school, but I will be in your high school next month, both of them, north and south. So you're aware that the high school students will be receiving their Vaping presentation. That presentation will be very different than your presentation. I'm educating you as adults, and so the other one is a little bit not intense. Is that a good way of saying it for you? When I present, please understand that I can do this in my sleep. I want to just kind of put out there that Middletown is no different than any other school district that I'm going into. This is a crisis situation when we talk about vaping and concentrate throughout the state of New Jersey. I do this presentation probably at least 5 times a week, either at night or during the day, for students, PD, or for community or adults. So it is really a situation that is real right now for us in the state of New Jersey. I also do not care if you interrupt me. So I know some presenters are very strict on doing that. If you have a question, you don't understand something, please interrupt me. Get the information that you need so that you can take that information and use it. I always say this. I know some of you in here are educators, some of you on the school climate teams, I heard some of our parents. At whatever point, sometimes it feels like your brain is about to explode when I start talking about this information. I just want to say when we know better, we can do better. So my job is not to scare you, because lots of times I feel bad when parents or adults say to me, I'm so scared now. That's not my job. It's really to educate you so we can make a really good conversation with you. Lots of times I hear adults say, what is wrong with kids today? I always like to kind of switch that up a little bit and really look about what happened. What is going on with our young people that they feel like they have to do certain things. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's isolation, loneliness, a mental health issue, but just kind of a switching of a thing. I don't want to preach to the choir, but I want you to understand that young people are going through a ton of stuff every day. They don't have the same tools and understanding that we have, but young people are dealing with death and family, friends. They're dealing with feeling like nobody gets them, they're isolated, they're lonely. Nobody understands what it's like to be dead. We have young people who know adults who are misusing or abusing prescription medication. They themselves may be misusing or abusing prescription medication, or they have a mental health concern and are not saying it because they do not want to be put on medication. We have family life that can be really struggling for a lot of young people. Home is not their safe place for a lot of young people. It's school. It's with all of you every day. And so we know there's fighting financial, there's drug addiction there, there's a lot of things that are happening in homes that young people are not coming to school and really talking about. Who they like, love, or crushing on is real, even in 5th or 6th grade. And we know who like, loves, or crushes them back, who Snapchatted them, who Instagrammed them, who blocked them. All of that nonsense for us seems very minimal in our world, but for them it can be life-altering. Mental health is at an all-time high. So I just need to say that out loud to every adult I can. As young as 5th grade, we're seeing young people who are having suicidal ideations and completions. Okay, and we have a lot of that linked directly to social media. And then finally, we have these 2 things: alcohol, vaping, marijuana. For us as adults, we look at it as just a substance. Just say no. But for them, understand it's much more than a substance. It's very social. Thinking about just vaping in general, we've made it a verb. It's a social thing. And so there is a lot of pressure for them to be included. That's all a young person wants, is to feel included. So if they are not invited to a party, if they're going to a party, if they're going to be parents, if they're going to be alcohol vaping, understand that it's not just a substance, it's a social situation. Just so we're kind of all in the same kind of wavelength, so you understand where we're at. The average age of first use in New Jersey is 9. Okay. When I do your 5th graders in Middletown, and I have a captive 5th grade audience, I say to them, how many of you know someone your age or someone you know uses a vape? Almost every single young person uses a vape. That's 5th graders. The Monmouth County number is a little bit higher, it's 14. So that's that transition year from 8th to 9th grade. So we know that transition year is really difficult for a lot of young people. 1 in 5 know or love someone who has a substance use disorder. So even in this small room, that's a ton of us in this room that know substance use disorder on a personal level. Why I share that with you is because you're young people also know it on a very personal level. A lot of them are dealing with substance use disorders in their homes, not necessarily understanding what it is. If a young person has one parent who has a substance use disorder, they're 50 times more likely to have a substance use disorder themselves. If both of their parents have a substance use disorder, it goes up to 90%. So is that a clear, cut thing that if they do, that's going to happen? No, but it's an important conversation to have with young people, especially with a family history. They are more susceptible than the person maybe sitting next to them, and so their decisions might have to be a little bit different. We do know that kids who start using substances before the age of 15 are 5 times more likely to become addicted to a substance. So when young people say to me, listen, Miss Nicki, I'm going to go to the party, I'm going to drink, I'm going to go and I'm going to smoke weed, my answer will always be the same to them. The longer you can wait to try a substance, the better your chances of not having an addiction to that substance as you move forward. Their brains are growing more quickly than their bodies at that time. Okay, so all of these brain messaging sites are being kind of melded together. Every time their brain gets a false sense of dopamine shock, so dopamine is the feel-good drug that happens normally in your body. And when young people are in front of me, I say when someone slides into your DM, they all laugh at me, right? That's a dopamine shock. If they're an athlete, I say if you hit a home run, that's a dopamine shock that happens naturally. Any chemical they put in, what happens is it shocks the brain and actually changes the hierarchy of the brain so that it makes it think that the drug is needing to feel good. And that is much more strong at a young age than as an adult. We do know that we in New Jersey are very progressive when we talk about drug prevention and education. I know sometimes we don't believe that, but we truly are when we look at the whole country. That being said, we put laws and bills into place to protect young people, especially with substance use disorder. So, how old do you have to be to legally drink alcohol? 21, correct. What if we become a recreational marijuana state? It'll be 21. 21 to use and 21 to purchase. And how about anything vape or tobacco related?
18.
How many do you think, 18? 19? Older? It's 21. So the state of New Jersey actually changed their law. We are 21. We're one of very few states that have a 21 and older for vaping and tobacco products. There's a little loophole in our law in the state of New Jersey. We're working on it, but it takes a while for things to kind of catch up. It is a purchasing law. I'm going to say that to you. It is not a possession law. So a young person cannot go to a vape store while we're 7-Eleven legally and purchase. But if they were all, let's say, outside on the playground hanging out, there's nothing legally saying that they cannot possess that vape. That being said, if it's a refillable, if there is suspicion of being used, then police can consider this drug paraphernalia. Okay, so there's kind of a little bit of wiggle room, but understand it's a purchasing, not possession law. And then most importantly, again, I know I said it once, I'm going to say it twice, 60% of people who have a substance use disorder also have a co-occurring mental health issue. So we have a lot of young people who are dealing with mental health. If you deal with substance use, that's two different things, put them together, it's a whole different ballgame. And it's really hard for young people to move that, and adults to figure that out. So it's really important to tell young people if they're not okay, that it's okay to say I'm not okay, to get the help they need before they try to self-medicate themselves. None of that. A big question I get is how are they purchasing this? So if your kids are lucky or blessed at all, and it's their birthday or Christmas, and somebody says, hey, what should we get them for their birthday or for the holidays? You might say, get them a Visa gift card. Get them an Amazon gift card so they can get whatever they want. Understand that a Visa gift card online is a credit card. If you give them $25 cash, they will walk to this Walgreens or CVS and purchase a Visa gift card because online that is a credit card. Most of the stuff is being delivered to homes without parents even realizing that it's being sent. Some of the stuff in front of me was purchased on Amazon and sent to us, to our office, without question. Because it was just, again, important to understand that that's how to get. Anyone know what this is? Snapchat, I believe, is the devil of all apps. So Snapchat right there is how in school they are getting around all of us adults in a school building. So they will use Snapchat to coordinate times, to meet, to hand off, and or purchase. So we're looking at, let's say, Jewel Pods. This will be $15. What they will do is they will put this on their Snapchat story. They will say, Pods, question mark, And then they will sell each of these pods, so if this is $15, they will sell each pod for $10. They're making a ton of money selling these products. In one of the middle schools that I go into, they said that they're not giving away their Juul, but what they are using Snapchat for is to coordinate meeting times. So if you give me $1 to $2, I will let you hit my Juul a couple of times for the day. And then they're using that money to repurchase the big products. Okay? Here are some websites. I need you to understand, go on the websites if you don't believe me. It'll say, how old are you? Are you 21? Verify, you hit verify, and that's all. They don't even have to do the math to figure out how old you're supposed to be, okay? It's just a click of a button. So in our very short time together, I will talk to you. They used to be called ENDS, Electronic Nicotine Delivery Systems. We now call them electronic inhalant devices because we know that concentrates are being used in vape devices. Most people call them e-cigarettes, vape pens, e-hookahs, dry herbal vapes, Saurian drops, Juul, fixes, flares. I say all those terminology for you because internally they all do the same thing, just a different brand. And I do have show and tell items, so you will see them in the box. Okay? And marijuana, we will just not legal, pro or against. I will just explain to you for our standpoint as an agency that does prevention, especially with young people, we look at it as a public health concern if we become a recreational marijuana state. That being said, I will cover concentrates because we know they're being used to these devices. I will also cover synthetics because we're seeing a huge increase in the state of New Jersey with synthetic marijuana or fake marijuana, and also edibles. If we become a recreational marijuana state, we will become an edible state, and young people will absolutely be drawn to those, and I'll show you some pictures of why young people would be interested. So, here is a traditional cigarette. These are e-cigarettes, meaning they look like cigarettes, have nicotine flavoring, and are made by cigarette companies. These in the middle here are what we call one-time use devices. That doesn't mean you only have to use it once. It means once the fluid inside is gone, you throw the whole device out. About $15 to $20 is the price range for those products. This here is a refillable. So the refillables, depending on the system, but in general, just a blanket general refillable vape, you need the vape fluid to fill in or the concentrates to put into it. When you're talking about fixes, flares, or Juuls, or Saurian drops, you need their cartridges or pods to replace. Okay, but traditional just refillable is these vape fluids that you use. I call these like the 2.0 versions more than the young people. So the Juul is probably what everyone has heard of at least. This is what a Juul looks like. It looks like a USB drive. Most schools have Chromebooks every day. Kids are walking around. This is the charging device that goes right into the side of the Chromebook, and young people are charging them all day in school without a lot of educators realizing or knowing that this is really a Juul and not a USB. Okay, so that's a regular in most schools that I go when someone is getting taught charging their Juul. Now Juul is kind of taking a backlash a little bit. I'll explain that in a minute. But just like we have Coke and Pepsi, then you have here, this one's the fix and the flare. So it's the same kind of thing, looks almost identical to a Juul, just a tiny bit different. But if you hear the terms fix, flare, fixing, all of that is just vaping also. Okay? This one here, the Saurian drop, is becoming quite popular. It looks very much like a highlighter or something like that. You can buy skins for them to make them look different, to decorate them. How they use these is they will stick them in the palm. I have a small hand, but they stick them in the palm of their hands. They close their fingers around it so the mouth tip is in between their fingers. They will sit in class, they will hit on it, and then they will blow it right into their shirt so that no one can see them exhale. How do they work? Internally, think of it like a humidifier. You put the water in, you plug it in, and the mist comes out. There are coils. All of them are battery operated. You hit the button, it heats the coils, which heats the fluid, and then it breaks it down. Most people say vaping. Please understand that it's not a vapor that comes out of it, it's actually an aerosol. So it's much smaller, so that is why when they exhale, it dissipates super quickly. So in schools, why is that important? If you're in a classroom and a young person exhales, by the time the teacher turns around, that will be gone. In a hallway where 100 kids are walking down the hallway in between classes, if someone exhales, by the time an educator or an adult gets close to them, they're already gone because it's hard to kind of connect that. That's why we also have issues in bathrooms, because the smell is often super sweet, especially for girls. You know, I have a 16-year-old, so I say that Emily left the building, but Ariana Grande kind of hung out for a while. She put so much of it on. What the trend is right now in schools, middle school and high schools, you will start to see young men carrying around Bath and Body Works spray. Okay? And that is their way of getting around that sweet smell. So if someone said, why do you smell that way? It would be because they're carrying around Bath and Body Works spray, so you can't guess that that's what they're doing. Just giving you a heads up. So let's look here. I do not think that young people are stupid, and I do not think that they don't care. I just think that they don't have all of the correct information. And so the top two were actually ads from the 40s and 50s when smoking became a thing. When I have young people in front of me and I ask them, will you smoke a cigarette? All of them say no. And we've taught them since they were this big what could happen, the side effects, and they can name them all for you very easily. If I ask them the same question about a vape, they kind of go, maybe once or twice, I don't know, maybe not, I don't know. Because information that has been put out there is that it's a safer alternative, there's no health effects attached to it, and that it's only kind of water and vapor. So a ton of them pollute. This here is an ad from this year for a vape company. I put that up there so you can see that the same exact marketing techniques that were used with big tobacco are being used in the vape world. For some of you in this room, you may not realize that 8 years ago when big tobacco had their big settlement, when they got sued by the government, certain precautions went into place, especially for young people. One, you cannot advertise on TV. You cannot advertise on the radio. Big tobacco cannot. They cannot advertise on the internet. They cannot have billboards certain distance from schools. What I need you to understand is when we're talking about vaping, those regulations are not in place. There are no regulations, so it's the wild, wild west. So some of you in this room may have heard vape ads on the radio. Some of you, Juul in particular, Juul has ads on TV. The reason why Juul can even think about putting those ads out there, what most of you in this room don't know is that they were bought by the parent company of Marlboro. Okay, so big tobacco owns Juul. And why would they do that? For the first time in U.S. history, tobacco sales were down, but vape tripled. It's $1 billion industry. And so big tobacco is involved and looking for a new generation of nicotine addiction. Here's the things that are put out there. If you love your lungs, vape. Friends don't let friends vape. And here's the Juul ads. If you look at them in particular, from the design of their product, which is techie, which kids would be interested in, to who they use in their products, which like any high school kid, the FDA has specifically come after Juul and said if you do not stop marketing towards young people, we will sue you. So, to play nice in the sandbox, which Juul has done, is they have said that, okay, to prove to you that we're not, what we will do is take our fruit flavor, the cherry, the vanilla, the mango, out of stores, and we will only sell the nicotine and the menthol mint in stores. Okay? So if you go into a store now, you will see some empty spaces. If they have it, it's because they already purchased it, but they cannot get it anymore. That being said, the fix or the flare is cheaper, and they still have the flavors. If you go on the Juul website, it says verify that you're 21. I hit yes, and I was on the Juul website, and I can afford it for you if I have a piece of it. What we know, 1 in 3 high school students have used. That's from 2017. I would say it's probably closer to 1 in 2. I know that's a big jump, but lots of times we see statistics, young people in particular think everybody's smoking weed, everybody's drinking. That's not necessarily the truth. When we're talking about vaping, unfortunately, very much so is. And so it is a serious situation that we're in right now. There is a high exposure to ads on the internet. Once they Google something, they will be inundated with ads, just not ads, but they will have links on how to purchase those products. We've had a huge increase in poison control calls. If you as an adult or your high school or middle school student know that this is not, what candy is this one look like? You know? Airheads. If they know that it's not an airhead, if you have younger brothers or sisters or siblings or cousins, it smells sweet, it looks like candy. Most of these bottles are not childproof, coming from overseas. They can easily open them. This fluid, if it gets into your skin, can go through your skin into your blood and you can get nicotine poisoning that way also. So you can't necessarily ingest it if it goes through your skin. It smells super sweet. How about this one? So I'm going to ask you not to pull it out or open it for those reasons. but if you want to smell how sweet it is, you can just, if the top's open, you can smell directly how sweet it is. So littler kids, more nicotine poisoning. Can an adult or a high school student use it once and have nicotine poisoning? Yes, but more often it's for younger kids and pets. We've had an increase in pets being poisoned also. The nicotine, yes.
I'm sorry. Is if you like, is there a way to tell that your kid's doing this? Like, I know when I was younger and I smoked a cigarette, my mom caught me right away. She smelled it on me.
The smell of it. So it's more just the sweet smell of it that you would kind of maybe guess. That's why it's easily hidden by a lot of us. There are some signs there's an increase there, so I will show you a slide that has some of those signs. But in general, not as easy as when we smoke traditional marijuana and or if someone smoked traditional cigarettes.
Okay.
Because when we're talking about concentrates, through the extraction process to create that, that smell, that traditional skunk smell, is decreased very much also. So you wouldn't have that traditional skunk smell. Or the PNC Art Center lawn smell. Yes? Okay.
Question.
Yes?
Can jewel cartridges, are there compatible cartridges that fit the jewel that may contain more like THC or something, and how can you tell the difference?
Well, that's part of the problem. You really can't, and that's why most schools now in the state of New Jersey are changing their vaping policy to the minute that they're caught with anything, they're automatically being drug tested. But do they sell illegally THC cartridges that fit? Absolutely, 100%. They also, so you know, can be manipulated with cartridges. So young people will use syringes to make a tiny little needle hole to put THC concentrates into the traditional vape jewel pods also. Any other questions? Just breathe. I see some of your faces already. I said, see, when we know better, we can do better. Okay, the nicotine levels are extremely high. There's lots of reasons why, but the jewel pod here, one cartridge is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes. Okay, when we're talking about amounts of nicotine. We have young people who are doing 2 to 3 of these a day. Okay, if you ask me how long a pod is, I can't give you an answer because it depends how much they're using it. So a pod can last a day, a pod could last a half a day, a pod could last 3 days. Really depends how much they're using. Okay. Juul in particular created it, other companies now have it, it's called nicotine salt that they have added to their products so that would reduce the negative side effects of the high levels of nicotine. So burning of the throat, this nicotine salt will counteract that so that you would ingest more and not feel the uncomfortable side effects of it. I just want you to think about one other thing. When we talk about nicotine, nicotine grows naturally in tobacco plants. There is no tobacco in any of these products. So all of this is synthetic nicotine, which means that it is chemically made. Do we have a list of every single chemical that they're using to make it? No, we do not. Most importantly for you to understand, if you take nothing else away from it today, none of this is regulated. None of the devices and none of the fluids. So we were supposed to start regulating in February of 2018. It was pushed back till 2022. Okay. The FDA stated that because too many mom and pop organizations would go out of business, that they pushed it back because the testing is quite expensive to have to use regularly. Why is that important? Think of the hoverboard craze. Some hoverboards were fantastic. Some hoverboards caught on fire. Some exploded. So these devices are the same thing. It's a battery-powered device. And so they malfunction often, but there's no mass recall. So if something happens in California or Florida or Ohio, we are not necessarily hearing about it in the state of New Jersey. Okay, because those devices are not regulated either. Lots of young people will say to me, I'm using the 0% nicotine. My answer is, are you? Because there is no regulation. So when we tested most of the 0% nicotine, they actually had nicotine in them.